Is one of y'all, do y'all have it up on LinkedIn, or do you have something open where I'm hearing a reverb? No? Okay.
No.
I thought I heard.
Our end.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe it's just me. Well, it could be me. That's very possible. Hey, everybody. Happy Baby Friday. Welcome to our 18th healthcare happenings. I was very jazzed when I saw myself. I started keeping track and I was like, wow. But yeah, today we are going to talk about a DOJ biller fraud case, which I thought was very interesting, and then lead into talking about what makes a good biller and what you should look for with a billing service, and answer y'all's questions on stuff. So I am very, very pleased to have with me two of my good friends and colleagues, Yvonne Dailey, who is a Jersey girl, and I have known her for a few decades through the AAPC, and she owns a billing service, Dailey. Is it Daily Billing Service or Daily Billing, or what's the correct one?
Daily Billing Services, but I hardly ever use it.
Okay.
Although we do everything.
And Natalie Eichholzer, who I also have known for decades, and she has a billing service in the Chicago area. Where exactly are you now, Nat?
Joliet, Illinois.
Oh, you are in Joliet now. Okay.
Yeah.
Out in Joliet, do you get out to any NASCAR races?
No, that's not my thing.
Oh,
sorry.
Well, we can still be friends. That's okay.
Can we be friends still?
Yes. So they are both owners of billing services and have done so for a very long time. So I thought they would be great to have for us to bring into the discussion, and for everybody that is tuning in to ask questions to. So I see I'm looking at people that are coming in, and a lot of people are saying hi, lady. Now,
Hi.
For lady, it's morning there because she's in California. We got Phoenix, Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. Oh, Mary. Hi, Mary. How are you? I believe Mary is in Seattle, Washington, or up about that way. So, New Hampshire, we get a whole lot of people from all over. So that's good. Oh, see, and I got somebody now on my Happy Baby Friday bandwagon now with what we call Thursdays. So that's good.
Oh my God.
So if y'all have questions, again, go ahead and start throwing them into the comment section. And as we're discussing things, I'll pull them in if they're applicable to what we're talking about at that time. If not, we'll see what we can get to before the end of the broadcast once we're done chatting. So thanks, everybody, for being here. So Yvonne, I'm going to have both you ladies I'm going to ask you a few questions to kind of introduce yourselves and let people kind of get to know you that maybe not. Lady says hi to both of y'all, to Natalie and Yvonne. So, Yvonne, I'll start with you. I know I said, we've known each other for decades, kind of thing. When you start doing that, but how long have you been in the industry?
A little over 23 years.
Okay. So I got you beat by over a decade. God, well, that's awful, isn't it?
Oh, you won't throw dates in there.
What'd you say?
I said we won't throw dates in there.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. What do you like about billing? Because I see, you're a certified coder and biller, and you're also a PMCC instructor, right? So
I like everything, actually.
Yeah.
I love, to me, billing is like a puzzle, putting all the pieces together. I think a good biller needs to understand coding, because then you understand why your doctors aren't getting paid, and just being able to solve that for our doctors is kind of fun. So,
cool.
I don't know. I'm nerdy in that aspect.
No, I think all of us and a lot of people that tune in for stuff like this, I mean, we we're coding and billing geeks, or we wouldn't be, doing this kind of stuff
Exactly.
and getting excited. Like when the 2023 E&M thing came out the other day, I was just like, oh my gosh,
Or
I
new
spent
code
July
books.
4th. I spent July 4th weekend reading through it like 6 times. So,
Exactly.
but that's that's what we're into. So Natalie, the same questions to you. How long have you been in the industry?
I think I'm with Yvonne. I think I about 23 years. I started with ambulance billing, and then as we talked about a couple days ago, I was telling you like I got into ambulance billing and I thought I knew everything, and then I came to your class, Betty, and I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. But I go in, confident and gangbusters. So yeah, and then just from there, I took your class and got into some medical records, started at the very, very bottom rung and kind of just continued to climb that the billing coding ladder, so to speak.
So what do you like about billing?
I enjoy fighting for the money with the insurance companies. That is, I can't explain how much satisfaction I get. It's a disease. It's
Oh,
probably
he's funny.
It
Well,
is,
he's
right?
honest. That's good. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's an obsession. It's very, so I like that part of it. I like solving all of the little denials and the really silly reasons that insurance companies, deny claims or line items on a claim, and I like to fight for that revenue for them. They deserve it. We all know that.
That is very true.
I fought for $34 for 2 years. My doctor was like, "Why are you still fighting this?" And I'm like, "It's the principle of it."
Absolutely,
It should have been paid.
absolutely.
I remember once, and this was years ago when we had, multitudes of staff. Not like these days when it's, you're really clawing for every minute you have. But I remember years ago that I was going back and forth with a payor, and I think it was something like $12. I mean, it was like under $20, and I was the same as you, Eva. I was just like, they owe it. I'm like, hey, if a payor finds out that they overpaid you by a quarter, they will take that quarter back from you.
Yes, they will.
So, I'm like, make sure. So, and I got that $12 too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But I liked ladies' comment here: coding and billing go along together like sisters.
Definitely.
But sisters that like each other, because sometimes it can be
Sometimes
the
we
can't
don't
fight with
like
the
each other,
sisters, right?
though.
And then, so what do y'all think makes a good biller?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think,
goodness.
in my personal opinion, I think a good biller is always doesn't ever stop questioning why, like looking for resolution till the claim is at a zero balance, because it starts, we all know it starts at the front desk and all the information that is collected, and we have to be very inquisitive and we have to keep following through, and there's just a lot of tenacity there, which can be construed by others as a negative thing, but tenacious is that's the first thing I look for in a biller or a coder for that matter.
How about you, Yvonne?
Um, Someone who actually gets the entire picture. I find that new billers don't get the whole picture. So, and they stop at, like she said, like, you have to be questioning. Like they stop at the first answer, and it's like, no, if you know that this is right, you fight for it, because sometimes we know a little bit more than some of the reps that are answering the phone at the insurance. Like, don't accept that if you know it's wrong. And again, I feel that you have to understand coding, because coding and billing are not the same, but they go hand in hand. And so if you're not understanding the coding aspect, then you're not going to really maximize that revenue for your doctors. And our goal is to maximize that revenue.
Well, yeah,
So
because
you
it's
have to understand that.
right, because it's hard if you get denials to do denials management if you don't understand if the denial's correct, or
Exactly.
if the denial is something that should be appealed, I remember years ago, I worked at a very, very large health system in Chicago, and there were like 500 physicians in the group. And so it was so large at the time. We had not only the billing separate from the coding, but even the billing, it was separated out by, they had a Medicare, a Medicaid, a Blue Cross.
Mm.
They had the groups, and we have found. I was going through, and they had payment posters, a whole room full of them. That's all they did all day. And I was going by there, and was chatting with some of them, and you could see that some of them were just heads down, click click click, and we were talking, and I said something about, we were talking about EOBs, and I said, well, what are y'all doing? Well, and if there was an amount that wasn't paid, they were heads down, payment post. They were just writing it off. They were writing everything off, and I was like, well, what if I said, do you look at the reason? No, that's, I don't even know what those things are. I'm just posting the payments. I was like, oh my gosh. So we had I took it to a few different people, and we instituted, this decision tree for them, because they were like, well, are you saying that every payment poster has to be a code? No, but they have to understand what they're looking at, so we made decision trees for them, that if this denial is on there, put it aside, send it back, do this, because but the place was so huge that the revenue they were losing, they didn't realize.
Probably millions.
Yes, but it was like they were still bringing in so much that nobody ever was paying attention to it.
Because they're making money.
Exactly.
So they're not realizing you're making money, but you're losing a lot as well.
Yes. And that's what I try to explain to physicians when I talk to them is, not having an experienced coder and biller. Sometimes they're the same person, and sometimes you're outsourcing, whatever, but not having that experienced person. It's the money that you don't realize that you're losing, that because sometimes people talk about the cost. And I said, well, you'd be surprised at how that pays for itself. Because of the increase in the things that you're getting that you don't even realize that you're losing. So I think those things are critical, and that you have to know and have trust in these people that, they're reputable and can do a good job for you. So from a billing service aspect, what kind of things does a billing service do? Are some of them soup to nuts with everything, and some of them just more confined to, just specific things, specific specialties? What do y'all see in other billing services and in yours?
Yvonne, you can go
Yvonne?
first.
Pick on Yvonne today. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, Natalie last time. She was being polite.
Well, we kind of do soups to nuts. We do it all. We do the revenue management. We do the denials, the appeals. We do everything. But I've seen many, and I've audited many billing agencies that just push a button. And what I mean by that, like, for example, I just came off a case where the doctor was losing all this money because he was out of network, and they would do a PR 100. Well, the PR 100 means that the claim was processed, but the funds went to the patient because the doctor was non-par. So you have to go chase that money. But because it was a $0 and there was no payment, they were writing it off.
Oh.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, write off in my office is such a bad word. And that's just it. Like what you said, like you have the ones that have like payment posters, and they're not understanding what, like, like I'll ask them, well, do you know what a PR 100 is? And they're like, patient responsibility. I'm like, okay, but what exactly does that mean? And then you have to know, when is a rejection or a denial a true rejection or a denial. Like if you have a CO50, which is what, medical necessity, chances are you have your diagnosis out of order. And people don't realize that. And so I had one doctor, he was an endocrinologist, and he would do the flu shot. But he's a diabetic doctor, so everybody had diabetes. And that's not what goes with the flu shot. So it would get denied for medical necessity. And so for years, he never got paid for the flu shots and he never understood why until he did an audit of his EOBs.
See,
So,
those are things where like it just I feel so bad for these physicians too. And it's just like if you would just take the time and if you can imagine how much payments that those are, it more than pays for the services
yeah,
of getting a coder or a biller or a coding and bill or outsourcing, what you're going to reap from it,
yeah.
is more than going to pay for, those services that you do, and make sure you get paid appropriately. Because I tell Jordan Johnson, one of his favorite sayings is no money, no mission. And
Oh,
so, if you're not bringing in the revenue, you're not going to be able to continue to serve your patients. You're not going to be able to get the new equipment you need. You're not going to be able, so I think of it and put it forth to physicians that way. It's like, you need to be getting this revenue, one, because you deserve it, and two,
you earned
because
it.
you can't continue to serve your patients
Hmm.
without getting paid for what you're doing to be able to offer them. And new equipment costs a heck of a lot of money, exam tables, all the stuff that you need to run an office, staff, so yeah, there's a lot of physicians that, bless their hearts, they'll be like giving away the farm, and
Yeah.
not, well, this is the patient. So I always say, yes, it is the patients, but to keep seeing your patients, you have to have revenue.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
another one is, before I forget, is understanding computer systems. Because a lot of people don't understand computers. I had somebody call me. They said they needed a biller, and they told me they had like mountains of checks on their that they hadn't posted. And I'm like, do you not auto post? Auto post? How do we do that? Like, oh my God, what? So they're not understanding what their practice management system is capable of doing. So I pretty much just educated them on what their system. They're like, oh my God, well, maybe we don't need you. We could do
Yeah.
this. We could do this. It's like, okay.
yep. All right. I want to, Natalie, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that it was very
About
well put.
services?
And yeah, and my service offers the same. I'm a new company, so just 2 years, just a little over 2 years. And so my focus is on the smaller practices right now. I think that they would benefit more from my services, because I can tailor what they need, and I work with them. So we're just kind of, like I said, starting out. So 2 years in the business, or as far as having a business, is
Right.
still baby, but lots of experience.
Yes. Oh, yes. I know. I tell it when I this is my third, I think, company. Third time I've done my own thing,
Hmm.
and in between working for other people. And I closed my last company when I went to work for the AAPC as a director there, and then I went to work for another consulting company after that. And, it was just, I got that. Yeah. I'm just like, I just can't be, I'm not a good employee. I'm, 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 because, you're telling me that I have to do something. I'm like, I really don't want to do that. Or why can I do it this way? I was like, I don't, it doesn't, after a while, I get restless, and so I was like, okay, I got to do it again. And of course, I make the decision. We went on vacation down to Florida in January 2020. And I had given my notice that my last day was going to be like February 9th or something like that. So we come back. I have my last day, get ready to do my thing. And then the next week, everything shut down because of COVID. So
Wow.
I'm like,
Oh,
I picked like the worst time. So I was very stunted for about a year and a half without being able to do much of anything,
yes.
because of COVID. So it took me a while to shift around, and so. But yeah, now I'm starting to pick things up and get on and get out there and stuff. So it's working really well, I think. But yeah, it was timing. I don't know. I never, but yeah, it makes you tough, right? So
Yes.
That's true.
We've all learned that in the 2 years.
We work differently now because
yeah,
of COVID.
that's very true. But I tell you, I cannot. I'm dying to get back in person and speak and I can't tell you. I'm jonesing. And this year at the beginning, I had my surgeries, and so I'm just now being able to start. And I'm not fully traveled because I can't lift all the suitcases yet. So until I can do that by myself, I'm not supposed to go. So I'm that close, and it's just making it worse.
Sure.
I'm so close.
Yeah, I realize I'm a little claustrophobic now with everything that's gone on,
but yes. So I'm looking forward to starting to do things like that. So, but the case I wanted to discuss, and which brings us to like why I wanted y'all to hear, was to talk to everybody about vetting out these billing services. This case, and I will put up let me find the banner for this is the case itself. If you want to go and take a look at it, for those of y'all that are watching, or you can just look up Tampa biller fraud conviction, something like that. So this case is about a biller who worked out of Florida, and he worked for a billing company. And it said the billing company did credentialing and billing, for physicians' offices. And so that's probably how this guy got a hold of all the physician's information that was needed, to do his bad acts. So this biller stole the physician he was assigned to, stole his identity, and changed the pay to on those claims to a bank account that he set up for himself, and proceeded to file false Medicaid claims on patients this physician never saw and never knew these claims were being filed. So the physician was totally out of the loop here, had no idea this was going on. It wasn't collusion or anything like that. This biller was filing false claims, having the money diverted into his accounts. So he stole his identity. I'm sure there's some HIPAA violations there with the patient information, right? And then filed false tax claims for himself because he, wasn't claiming the stuff he stole. So,
Oh my gosh.
and he ended up getting convicted and sentenced to almost 5.5 years in prison.
That's it. Wow.
That's it. He could have gotten 10 years for each count. So they went really, I was surprised, but they got it for healthcare fraud, aggravated theft, and filing false income tax returns. So he got 5.5 years in prison and had to pay back almost $2.3 million and forfeit his property in Tampa. So that would add up to it. And let me tell you, property in Tampa is not cheap right now. So that was because it was proceeds from his illegal activities. So
was he the owner?
no, he was not. He was a medical biller assigned to that physician.
So I kind of feel like the owner takes a little bit of responsibility.
And
I might assign people to certain accounts, but at least once a month I go through and audit everyone, because they should have had checks and balances in place to realize, because I'm assuming he used the billing company's system to submit the claims.
I'm sure he did.
So then are they not running reports?
That would be my question too. What kind of reporting were they doing?
See, and this is the kind of question I think maybe too brings up the thing about the checks and balances, right?
Yeah, there was no checks and balances, obviously.
If you hand over a biller an account and say, this is your account, then was it totally his account and he was responsible for running everything and making sure everything was done, and you know what I mean, to where nobody else was checking on what they were doing. So that's the kind of stuff that I think if you're vetting out a billing service that you kind of want to be looking for. So that brings me to that, because as I said, and I'm sure with the the billing service, I'm sure there's some, some hot water that they're in with issues, and maybe this physician is now going to, sue them, because now the physician is going to be in a whole mess, because think of all the claims that were submitted under his name that he actually didn't do. So then and that might be how, things came about, because his taxes, he'd be filing from what he says he thought he made, but that's not what's showing was paid to him. So, that's going to be off too. So now he's going to have to fix that, because this biller was doing this, illegal activity. So,
and how did the billing agency bill him for their payments? Like, I don't know. There's just doesn't seem like there's checks and balances that were in place.
Exactly.
I don't know. That's just weird.
So Mary makes a point that she says, match a biller with a payment poster and not have it be the same person. That's one, kind of check and balance that you can have.
And I wonder if he was using the same software, because there's software out there that's, free or very inexpensive, and he could have just started a new account. I mean, and then even it doesn't matter how many reports you run,
it's not going to show.
Exactly.
That's why I was curious, was he was using theirs, because if he was using theirs, then my charges were like ridiculously high. I would have seen that. Like, well, wait, why? If I know this doctor only bills 1,000, that's
well, no, yeah.
But now he billed 10,000.
Yeah,
something's up.
But yeah, and that's why it doesn't really. The DOJ announcement, of course, doesn't get in the nitty gritty, one, because they probably don't want to like tip off other people. Maybe thinking, I do that, Exactly. But, they did catch this guy. But if you think, we were chatting before we went live that this guy had to pay back almost $2.3 million, and it was through Medicaid.
Yeah.
So can you imagine how many claims this guy must have submitted nefariously to earn that much money from Medicaid? I mean, it just, the greed, I think, gets, as we were talking about, it just, they get crazy with it. They start to get stuff in, and then all of a sudden, they want more and more and more, and they lose track of their senses with this stuff sometimes. And then, they can't figure out how come they got caught. Like, well, I mean, if you think about it, $2.3 million increase in submitted claims to any payor is going to set off bells and whistles. And this was all in a year. So it wasn't like even they were spreading it out over 20 years or something. I mean, it was, this guy went hard. So when people are looking for billing services, because we know that everybody is trying to do more with less people, less staff, just because everything's so expensive, everything's so tight, everybody's so tight. So using billing services may be a way that, they can get these things done in a manner that works for, the practice, and, obviously works for the billing service. So what kinds of things should somebody look for in a billing service if they're like looking to hire one? Vetting them out, questions they should ask, things that they should be aware of.
I think that the experience, I think is important, just the years of experience a person has, or, the staff that the people have. Checks and balances, as far as who's running the reports, who's posting money, how will I know if my claims were, sent out? All of that is tied into all the reporting. And that just depends on the software that you're using, right? Mm-hmm. It could be really good software, or it could be really bad. And we all have worked with everything in between. And then I would recommend obviously having some type of insurance, looking
Yes.
for, at errors and omissions insurance for that billing service. And I do print out reports for the clients that I do have, how much money was posted, the claims that came in, claims that went out. And there is I feel like a clear picture. I actually, on a couple of my clients, they actually trust me enough that I collect their paper checks and I go to their locations because they're local for me. And I go to the bank and make their deposits, but I make copies of everything, the deposit tickets, everything, and they get all that back. It all matches, because I would never want to be accused of stealing $1, let alone $2.3 million. So that's just overwhelming. $1 makes my hand sweat. So, I don't want to be accused of anything. I'm like, here's 59 cents for the stamp I used.
How about you, Yvonne?
Well, it's interesting that she said that, because when I first started out, I had a doctor who literally, when I went to the office, all his copays were in a drawer. He didn't have a checking account or anything at all. So I went and I opened up a checking account for him and all of that. But interesting enough, in Jersey, we're kind of governed in a way by the Division of Banking and Insurance. So I had to register with the state. And one of the things that their guidelines was that we're not allowed to touch their money at all. So
Interesting.
yeah, so we don't have a lockbox or anything like that. I never touched the physician's funds, although, with your small doctors, sometimes patients send me to check. And sometimes they make it out to daily billing. So I literally have a letter in my system that's generated that says, we don't touch the funds of our provider. We apologize for the inconvenience, but please reissue a check, and then we send it back. But we keep a copy of it so no one says, oh, well, you guys took it.
Right.
So that kind of protects us in the sense that no one can say that we took anything at all, because we never touch our physician's money.
So can I ask you a question about that before you? So if in your state, then all payments from the insurance companies either have to be like electronically done, like through EDI, or they all have to go to the practice's office and they have to do it?
It goes directly. Most of my doctors, because I started out with a lot of the little ones, I set them up for electronic payment, and so it'll go directly to the bank account. But then there's still some that get paper checks. The paper checks literally go to the doctor's office. So I'm really on a trust system with my doctors that they have to give me copies of payments. Mm-hmm. Granted, I still have some of those that will get the checks and then they thought they can control my money, because then they wouldn't give me the checks. But I always set it up that even though they're getting paper checks, I'm going to get the electronic remittance. So then I post. Okay. So the doctor was like, I never gave you that payment. How'd you know? Exactly, because we have it come into our system. There are those checks and balances. So even if they try to hold the checks, and because we get a percentage, so they try to hold it, and so then she just realized, like, okay, it doesn't really matter. She's gonna know, because I know they got paid whether I get a copy of the checks or not. And sometimes they'll say, well, I never got it. My job was to get you paid. You were paid. Now, if you have a problem with your mail system, that's between you and the mailman. But your claims were paid, and I can prove it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Cool. So we have Jessica that made a comment here that I thought was good. I just told the provider recently, if there's no questions asked, there are no answers to give. They must be watching and asking questions on a regular basis. So I think that's a really good point. Just because you're outsourcing that or hiring a billing service doesn't mean that you just can totally ignore the fact that you have to bill things that you're doing. I mean, it's still your practice. It's your NPI. They're your tax ID numbers. They're your, you know what I mean? So all of that stuff you're still responsible for. So, it's on them too to make sure that they stay involved to that point, of getting the reports. And when they get them, that they look at the reports.
And they understand them.
Exactly. So, Jessica, that's a wonderful point to make.
I also say doctors need to understand and read the back of a 1500, because sometimes they've never read the fine print. the fine print on the back of a 1500 pretty much tells them that regardless of who's doing your billing, you're ultimately responsible for your billing. So they need to be involved.
Yes.
Agreed.
Here we've got a whole bunch of different, so I'm just going to start to pull comments in to see if they're, so Kate says EOBs and ERAs have some differences, and currently the payors started to use TPAs to price their claims, so some of the EOB explanation codes like for Cigna and Aetna changed. So I'm not sure if that's to the point of, you know, the billers being current and you know, experienced, you know, to make sure that they're staying on top of it. Like when y'all were talking about what you're looking for in a biller, it has to be, because just like coding, you know, the billing issues change, the remittance advices and different things. So they have to also keep up with, you know, what's going on in the things that they're looking at.
The Washington, I can't remember because it's in my presentation, so I should know it, but the Washington Publishing something, I think it's WPS.com. If you were to go to that website, they will give you like EOB's explanations. They'll tell you like the codes, when the new ones that are coming out, some that have expired. So if you're not familiar with the explanations on an EOB, you could literally go and buy that book or go to their site and you can literally see some of those reason codes. So I always tell people to check that out.
Good. Oh, here's a good one too. And the people that come in from LinkedIn, sometimes it doesn't identify them, so it just says it's LinkedIn user. So I can't say who put this out, but it says providers have to take ownership of their data. Contracts need to be written up that the billing company and billers must provide month-end reports from aging to appeal status. Too many contracts do not address this and leaves the providers and practices at great risk. So that brings up a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all have specific types of contracts? Do you customize each contract for what you're doing with your clients? You know, do you always have a contract? I would say yes, but I want to make sure that I hear that from y'all.
I have 4 local clients, and I offered a contract. They didn't want one, but they've been clients for 2 years now. So I guess things are going well and the jobs are getting done. So, but we're, you know, I don't have anybody currently that's like out of state or out of the area, and I see them on a weekly basis. So that's kind of how I operate. They were offered.
I would still have one just because at the end of the day, I would want to protect myself.
Yeah.
Because I had some doctors, you know, like when I first started out, I didn't really have a contract. And then I learned that with every bad client, you start to learn. So they're like the best teachers.
Oh, yeah.
So then I knew what I wanted in my contract. So now all of my clients have a contract, but it is customized for each one, what we do. And in some of them, if I'm doing the billing, I don't necessarily do their coding, depending on the practice. But I tend to, like, you know what, I need to separate myself. So if I'm doing your coding, then I'm not doing your billing. If I'm doing your billing, I'm not doing your coding. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not reviewing the coding, even though I'm not doing the coding, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, because with what I do with my clients that are kind of contract averse, you know, is I tell them, you know, I'm much more comfortable if we have one, just because I need protection too, just as well as you, and I don't want there to ever be issues, and you know, and so on some of them that are like that, I'll do that month out, to where I'll give them a 30-day out clause. So, you know, that they don't feel like they're stuck inside, because that's what
Either
it is
way.
with some of them, is like that they don't, right. And it's either way. So if you're not listening to me, you know, it goes both ways here, buddy. But yeah, so because I feel the same way. And Natalie too, just it made me remember one of the things you were saying with insurance, something for everybody that's listening, errors and omissions, no matter if you're contracting as a coder, a biller, whatever, if you're working, you need to make sure you're checking out errors and omissions insurance.
Yes.
And I tell my clients that I carry it because I do. And it's funny too, because a lot of they're like, what is, I mean, they know what E&O is, but they're just like, really? You got, they didn't realize that, I was like, well, yeah, we have to protect ourselves too. So getting errors and omissions insurance is something that if you're going out on your own or you're doing contract work for somebody, you need to definitely make sure that you're looking into that. It's not terribly expensive for, a one person, if you're doing it as like a contractor kind of thing. So make sure you check into it. Here's another, I really needed to hear the conversation from Kim. I'm also seeing the same situation, tons of unnecessary write-offs and patient billing. So very frustrating. I can only try and educate. I'm not getting much support since it's easier the way it is, I'm sure. I am very much enjoying this. Thank you. So that's nice. So yeah, that's the thing. If you have a client that you're getting something like this, because if y'all are doing a ton of write-offs, y'all aren't making any money either. So not only is the physician not getting paid, but y'all aren't getting paid. So if you have a physician that's kind of like, oh, they're just happy go lucky to be seeing patients and don't really care about that. I mean, what kind of recourse do y'all, I mean, is this just a thing where you kind of say this then just isn't working out here because, you're spending more time not getting paid?
You can also audit write-offs, because there was a case where the biller was like writing off the full amount and so forth. I can't remember exactly how that case went, but it was another biller that was stealing money from the physician, and there was a lot of write-off. So I always tell physicians, like, every now and then, we have to audit like write-offs. Why is an entire claim being written off? What are they trying to hide?
Good question. Here, I think, is that thing you were talking about, Yvonne. Thank you.
That's Christine. A different one, but you know what? Let me take that down.
She said it's free. So, this is where you can get the adjustment reason codes for those of y'all that, want to go look it up. So Christine, thank you very much for sharing.
Are you like making a copy of that? Like, will I get this later?
Yes.
All right, cool. Then I won't write it down. Thank you.
And ladies asking a question, how often do you work on second level appeals?
Until everything's paid.
Yeah.
So do you find that y'all have to do that often?
We need to work on all appeals. So you want to just keep going until everything's cleared. Our goal is to get everything to zero.
Correct.
Do y'all do, have y'all done ALJ, administrative law judge appeals? Have y'all, either of y'all had to do those?
I have,
Not
yes.
yet.
And how, what kind of experience, what is that like, Nat?
You know what? It was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. It was a urology group, and it was years ago when the, what is that called? That little clip that they put in the prostate. It was the UroLift. And there wasn't a code for it initially. We had to use the, unlisted code and all of that. But it was, we got them paid because other carriers were paying them, and Medicare came through and reconsidered them at that level, that higher level. And we ended up getting our providers paid. But it was a very seamless. I love dealing with Medicare because they're very straightforward. The rules, it's black and white. So yeah, it was a seamless process. I really liked it. It was rewarding, and we got paid, like I said.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I find that if you're doing everything and you have your checks and balances from jump, then you don't really have a lot of appeals. Like we don't have to do a lot of appeals because we're making sure that the claim goes out clean to start with. And if you have the checks and balances where you're doing this audit of your practices, and I do it every month, I audit all of my clients because I need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I probably could be huge, but I choose not to grow that big because I'm a control freak. Um, and I like that little personal touch. And if it gets too big, like that practice, that billing agency had to have been among us to, for this guy to steal $2.3 million. You have to have those checks and balances in place.
Yeah.
Agreed.
A lot of people have made comments on the contracting issue. So agreed, Yvonne. I had a billing company for 17 years. There were times the contract was a blessing.
Yes.
And we have Kate that says she always has a contract for every client. They protect both parties and clearly outline what your services are. And
because what happens sometimes, right?
Yep.
We start doing stuff for our doctors, and there are certain things that they want you and they expect you to do, but it's not part of the contract. And so I'm a giver. And so I'm constantly giving, you know what I mean? Like giving advice, helping out or whatever. And then it gets to the point where you're pulling me away from my clients, my paying clients, because I'm spending so much time doing that. So then I'll say, oh, you know what? That's not part of your contract. But if you want me to do that, there's an administrative fee of, and then that cuts out a lot of those Q&A sessions that they want to have, that goes on and on. Hi, Kim.
So yes, Kimberly's on. She said, yes, contracts provide good understanding both ways.
Both ways. And it gives us an out.
Yeah.
Because there's an out for the doctors, but because I put that clause in there that I can, if you're doing something wrong. I had a client who, I don't know, he must have gotten it was for the nursing care facility. And I swear he must have been getting a list of just patients and submitting false claims to us, because the denial was coming back that this claim was the patient had already died. And so once I saw that coming through so often, and this is because I'm auditing EOBs, I was like, you're not necessarily, you're giving me tickets, but these people are dead. How did you see them? So literally when I tried to have that conversation, he never had time. So I canceled the contract and I sent him a letter per the following reasons. We're canceling your contract because as a billing agency, if one of your doctors get audited because of something that you did as a billing agency, it opens it up to all your doctors getting audited. So I need to be able to protect my other doctors. So how quickly did he call me? Because he wanted to know, why did you put that in writing? Well, because when they come after you years from now,
you can't throw me under the bus. Yeah.
And so what happened, true to that, 5 years later, he was being audited and they did come to me and I had my little letter we knew. I didn't report him because that's the thing too, right? As a billing agency, I really should have. But then at the same time, if you start reporting everyone, then people are kind of like, ooh, do I really want to go with that billing agency? So it's kind of, but I had my cancellation letter that protected me. So, yeah.
Well, and you really didn't have solid proof.
Oh, my EOB said the person was dead. That's a proof.
Well, I mean.
But yeah, you're right.
I mean about intent.
This is what I suspected.
Right. But I think it was interesting. One is interesting that he didn't have time to talk to you until you put that in right. Then he wanted to know why you put it in right. You know what I mean? It's funny how they pick up quick then. But here, Jessica had, I just wanted to, because y'all appreciate this, things written off without being appealed give me a rash.
Makes my hands sweat.
Because when you were saying your thing. What is
I love the way you spell your name, by the way, Jessica.
I know, isn't that neat? Grabiella is I'm not sure. Oh, here's another. Wow, that's a bill. That's a really long one. But these will all be in the chats of the LinkedIn. So people that want to go back and look at these, if you just go back through the recording, all of these will be in there. So you can see the stuff in there. So same thing. Is that the one you were talking about, Yvonne, or is that still a different?
I don't remember it being that long, but it's part of that site. Yeah.
Is that Wisconsin Physician Services, the WPS? Is that right?
The one I think it's Washington something. I wanted to open my presentation, but it was Washington Publishing something, because there's a book. You can actually buy the book. The book is expensive.
Okay.
I always say, just give me the back of the remits because I learned a lot.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Most important page.
So Christine Hall, thank you, Christine, for putting in parens so I know it's you. Christine says she's worked on ALJ appeals too, and it's a very timely process. I think that's, Nat, like you were saying, that's the one good thing about Medicare is that everything, because the federal guideline, you 30 days for this, and then there's 30 days to that, and then so you do know, just never ever miss a deadline.
Correct.
Oh, God,
That's all I gotta say. Just as long as you don't miss a deadline, you know exactly how it's going to go.
And that's the other thing too, right? Understanding those deadlines, because you have your timely filing, you have your deadlines for your appeals, and then make sure that you're doing your appeals in order. Because if you jump from, level 1 to level 3 or whatever, then you've kind of missed the little opportunities that you've had. So you have to understand the appeal process and how to follow them. And a lot of times people don't get that.
Yep. Natalie, somebody says, lady says you should make a presentation about ALJs.
Hey, I'll attend it.
Yeah, I'll that mental note.
We actually, to lady, and for those we're I am in the finishing stages. Dr. Dave Mullins, who was a guest of mine a little bit ago, we're in the finishing stages of his webinar on Medicare, how to win Medicare appeals. It's a whole thing on the ALJ. So that will be coming out from us either at the end of this month or in August. So, and that's, I got his book, How to Win Medicare Appeals. It's very interesting. So, yeah, it's a really neat thing. So be watching for that. And yeah, that would be a good presentation for like a local chapter or something too, Natalie.
Oh, Betty.
Send me the link so I can attend.
President for 2 years was enough.
You know what? You're always going to get pulled back in no matter what we do. Oh my God.
I love it though. I
know, right?
I think about it and then I'm like, oh, I'll just take a step back if somebody else is going to step in. And
that's the thing. You don't want it to come across as like it's your show kind of thing. So you try to, but then
they pull you back.
Very difficult thing sometimes, is getting other people to, because they're used to now other people doing that. Mm-hmm. And I love the chapter, so I've been there. It's like, no, I have to be done. This is really it.
Well, I was fortunate enough to step in your shoes, Betty, because you started our chapter, and then I was president for 2 years after you. So you had taken a break, and then I followed in.
Thank you. Yes, you did, and you did very well.
A great chapter.
Thank you. Kate says about terminating. She terminated a contract too. We need to protect us. We all work too hard to get where we are and what we achieved. That's
Amen,
very correct.
Kate.
That's right.
And not only that, but then you can ask for more money if you need to.
Yes.
So it kind of helps me.
Yep. Graviella came back and said, yeah, that's the one that Yvonne, that you were talking about. I'm not sure why I was
I don't remember it being that long, but yeah.
And then, I got to show this one first, but lady says, go for it, Natalie. She's not going to leave you alone. She's a chapter officer for her chapter in California. So lady is.
Well, maybe her and I can collaborate. We can work together.
Exactly.
So Kate says here about timely filing frames. Some physicians don't know their timely filing frames for the appeals and considerations. So sometimes it's difficult to explain that a claim cannot be appealed. And usually when that happens, at least when it's internal, it's usually the practice's fault, not, because they've let something. I had these general surgeons. I managed there were 2 surgeons and 2 infectious disease doctors, greatest people in the world. And this was out in Joliet, Natalie, for Silver Cross. They were they were affiliated with. And my one doctor, I was always on them. They would go to the hospital and do things, and they would come in and hey Betty, I'm like, yes, it is, like, and they'd have a box, and I already knew. I'm like, uh-huh. Oh, I was cleaning out my car. I'm like, uh-huh. And they'd start pulling out, it is written on the back of Telfa pads and, napkin. Can we bill for any of this stuff?
They're great, aren't
and I was
they?
just like, seriously? And then I go back and I look through it. I'm like, well, this is 6 months old. So, that one you just ate. And this one, and that's the thing that I was, saying before. Sometimes those physicians, and they were the greatest physicians. I mean, if I ever got sick, or needed those, I definitely would have gone to any of the 4 of those guys, but just know the business sense. It was just, and they were like, well, we're doing okay. I'm like,
you could be doing so much better.
Like, yeah, okay, but yeah, they would just pull and stuff. They'd come, and so I said, when you're done with the hospital, you have to stop in the office first and empty your pockets. That's what I instituted with them, because I was like, because I started writing down, like, these are the timely filing things that we had to eat, know, and I started doing what those amounts were, and when you look at it together, then they're like, oh.
I have a form
because 2 of them were surgeons. I did have forms.
Oh, and the reason I do that is because if I put it on the form, on our non-billable form, and give them the reason, right? If later on a doctor wants to say, oh, well, I'm missing money because you guys didn't do this timely, then I have proof of when I sent it to them. And so then again, that protects me.
Yeah. Well, these were physicians that I worked for. It wasn't like an outside service, but yeah, it was, I had forms. They had hospital forms that I made for them. They had template things for their surgeries to do. So I had to start calling over to the hospital to check the surgery rosters and all that kind of stuff to make sure. And then, like I said, I made them come back to the office anytime they were at the hospital, and they had to empty their pockets in front of me so I could see that they did not have anything. It was just, it was not fun. And this was before, like now, depending on what EHRs you have, sometimes you can check into the hospital to see what. But back then, we didn't have all that stuff.
No, it's paper.
Yeah, we were chasing down everything, and it was just like, no, y'all, this is not fun. It's just like, just let me have it, So, Lady says that we are very fun to watch. We made her day. That's very nice. Thank you, Lady.
That's so funny, because we were talking about how geeky we are with billing, and we made somebody's day talking about billing. Trying the craziness.
That's right. Welcome all.
Well, like I said, I try to make it fun, and Natalie, see, you were worried, and
I was worried.
See, it's nice.
I was worried.
So I'm looking. If anybody has any other questions they would like to ask the ladies, because we're almost up on an hour already. See, didn't it go by fast?
It went by really fast.
Yeah. Yes. So if anybody has any questions they would like to ask, go ahead and throw them in the comments now, so we can make sure we catch them before we're done. Jessica says she's finally got hers to send me the medical record numbers. I told them just to give me the MRN and I could do the rest. Yep. Now that you get access, it's a lot easier, but you still need the basic information. But yeah, that was, it was always a nightmare trying to chase those guys down with that stuff. It was just too, it was like, playing hide and seek. I'm like, seriously? All right. I am not seeing. Oh, Christine Hall says y'all are all in great company. We're all a little geeky over billing.
I love what I do. I mean, the opportunities that we have as billers and coders is just amazing.
Yeah,
it is. It is. I feel very blessed that this all kind of really did land in my lap, my story. So, and then Betty in my life for all these years too. It's just been a great ride. It's been a great ride.
Yeah, I can't complain.
No, we have a bunch of we have a great community. I think
We do.
what's really nice. You have some professions that don't really. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they all do, but I don't think so. I think we're the best. So
No, it's awesome that I could pick up the phone and just, ask you. Well, I call you too.
yes,
It's like, hey, have you come across this?
yes. And I called you, like the one lady that I called you in to help on. So yeah, it's already nice. And it's real nice that and everybody is, it takes the village,
Yeah,
and we're blessed, definitely. And passion is the key. And I
yeah,
totally agree with that lady. And I think that's with anything. That's like when you see presenters, that's one of the things. And then I'll let y'all go because I know but I love attending the CPT symposium, right?
mm,
Because you get to go and listen to the physicians off the CPT panel that made the codes that are going into effect, why they made them. You get to hear the RUC people, and then they have the Medicare, the MAC contractor there to talk about how Medicare is going to look at it. So I just think it's fabulous, So I always tell people, if you ever get a chance to go, make sure you can go. It's in Chicago. It's always there. It's always in November. It's so and hopefully it'll be live. And I'm going this year if it's live. I can't wait to be back. But that being said, there are times, because they're physicians, and not all physicians are great presenters. There's this one derm guy that's just hysterical. He's got Yoda popping up and stuff like that, and that when he's doing presentation things and jokes, and and then there was this one physician, I think it was a radiologist, and I know they get a bad rap, but I mean, if I would have needed toothpicks to keep my eyes open, if he would, I mean, it was just, it was that monotone where he was like, next year, this group of for an hour.
Oh, wow.
the longest hour.
Oh my gosh. So, it doesn't always work out real well, that kind of thing. But, so I think bringing fun to it, and you seeing a person's excitement and that they love what they do, goes a long way when you're listening to presentations, especially when you're doing it at a conference and it's one after the other after the other. So I really, really think that's important. Yeah. So definitely. So ladies, thank you very much for joining me today. Do you have any closing comments you want to give to people that are watching?
I would just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Exactly. Same here. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I love visiting with y'all.
Bueller.
That's exactly. That's what this gentleman sounded like. Can you imagine that now for an hour straight? It was rough. It was rough. So,
We're really dating ourselves with that brew.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm not sure some of the younger
There's
people.
probably some people like, what is that?
What's Bueller?
All right. Well, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Ladies, thank you very much. And
Happy Baby Friday.
Yes, thank you. Happy Baby Friday. Oh, one more thing I did want to say. From my company, I didn't bring, here's Yvonne's billing company's website if you want to take a look at Yvonne. Or Yvonne, do you have an email that you want to share with people?
You want me to put it in the chat?
That would be great. And then Natalie, this is Natalie's email. If you have some questions, like Lady, if you want to hit her up for speaking at your chapter.
I might hit her up too.
You all are no. I'm kidding.
And I'll be holding an MDM webinar the 19th of July and the 23rd of July. So nice. If you go check out the website, that'll be and I'll put out a notice about it today. But I wanted to also give away 2 attendances. So Natalie, I'll have you pick a number between 1 and 10.
1 and 10, 8.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Jessica, she made the 8th comment. So Jessica,
Wow.
you get 1. So email me, DM me, IM me, whatever they call that stuff. Send me a message and I'll give you the code. And then Yvonne, you give me a number between 1 and 10.
My favorite number is 5.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went 5 after that. And Mary, I think Mary signed off, so she might not know. So I'll get a hold of Mary. So give me another. So I'll go 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Michelle. Michelle is the president of the chapter in Indiana that I speak at quite often.
Hi.
So Michelle, you also get a free attendance. Just email me. You have all my emails, so you can get all my phone number and everything, so you can get a hold of me. All right. So and I will get a hold of Mary. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
And
Bye,
be checking
everyone. Have a
to
great
see
weekend.
you out in a couple weeks.
Have a great
Love
week,
you all.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.